everyone. I'm Kevin Blevins, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Siemens Startup Podcast Series, where we speak with entrepreneurs and gain insight on how they turn their innovative dreams into successful companies. This is the first Siemens Startup Podcast for 2023, so let's go ahead and get started. Over the years, my wife and I have considered building new homes. It always looks like a great idea, right? You get to select your materials, your colors, your fixtures and appliances. You get just what you want, or do you? I've had friends and family members who have built new homes, and when I say all, I mean all, and every one of them shared numerous horror stories related to improper construction, wrong materials being used and having to be ripped out, and new ones reinstalled, and then the time delay, and yet another time delay, right? So I've chosen to buy existing homes instead. But today, the guest has the potential for changing my opinion for all the right reasons. Today, I'm speaking with Craig Darien, Vice President of Engineering at Cover Technologies Incorporated, a U.S.-based startup company designing and manufacturing custom homes. Cover Technologies is developing homes that are well integrated, modern, automated, efficient, and developed as a product. The introduction alone begs a number of questions for me. But first, let's get started and learn more about our guest. So, hello, Craig. Wonderful to speak with you. Very much appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Yeah, hello, Kevin. Thanks for having us.
Tell us about your background and what brought you to where you are today.
I started as an engineering student after getting a master's in tire modeling. Went into motorsports, developing performance models for race cars, IndyCar, NASCAR, some Formula One and military vehicle consulting, back to NASCAR in 2011. At the end of 2011, I sort of got out. I knew somebody who knew somebody at Tesla, and I went to Tesla before we launched Model S, joined the chassis team there, helped launch Model S, and that was a lot of fun. And then end of 2014, took over Vehicle Dynamics at Tesla. Was responsible for everything about Model 3 at launch and for the first year and a half or so of production. In my time at Tesla, I got to really understand what it meant to create a product that changed people's expectation of what was possible with that product. Talking with some other friends and coworkers at Tesla about what else would we want to do? What other industries would we want to change once we saw that, like, hey, this was actually working and we're having an effect on the world. And for me, having started a Habitat for Humanity club in high school and done some home remodels in my lifetime and construction, as an engineer, you recognize how bad it is. I'm not unique in that regard, but I had been approached by the co-founders of this startup Cover down in LA, straight out of school, just finished a summer Y Combinator session. So I decided I just wanted to see what we could do to try to turn homes into a fully engineered product, not just an assembled set of parts.
That's neat. So the inspiration really came from being able to do something and build a product, being a home, and construct it that way, as opposed to a site plan where somebody goes on sites and starts putting things together.
The real inspiration came from, I would say, Tesla customers. The way I got to see firsthand, I got to deliver many of the early Teslas, and I got to see how customers responded to a product that changed their expectation of what the car could be. Tesla launched cameras in cars a year before telling anybody it actually did. Seeing how people responded and what you could do with the product as we went through those exercises. The line I use now is Apple didn't invent the phone, Tesla didn't invent the car. What they did is they changed the customer's expectation of what that product could be. And that's what we're striving to do here at Cover, is make thoughtfully designed and well-built homes for everybody, and ultimately change the world's expectation of construction.
Can you tell us more about Cover Technologies and how the company got started?
The company was started by the two co-founders, Alexis Rivas and Jamwel Abufaki, and they met in college. They had this idea to try to break homes down to first principles. They were architecture students at Cooper Union, and Jamwel comes from more of a software background, and Alexis was looking to go into development. But really what they understood at a very young age was just how broken the existing processes were for building high quality products at volume. They understood what high quality was, working on some high-end custom homes during their internships, and also what high volume was, having worked at some of the prefab manufacturers. But really what we're trying to do cover is engineer the components and have a system of software behind it to drive how you can configure those building blocks in any number of ways that is custom to the client, custom to the user. So we really look at ourselves as a technology company, combining parts, combining software and the logic to control those parts so that you can build within reasonable limitations, but limitations that still make the final product feel infinitely configurable to the customer. That's really what we strive to do.
Craig, can you tell me more about how you sell this concept to potential customers?
To turn the home into a product, you have to provide upfront costs and then upfront pricing. So we only have one number upfront. Our customers don't have to worry about the architectural or the regulatory or site work or any of that. We handle all of that in-house, most of it internally, a little bit contracted. It's really about, doing all that to change people's expectation. Of the nearly 36 units that we've delivered, no two are the same, right? So when I say they are configurable, every one that we've sold, the customer is configured to fit on their property.
I think that's smart. What are you presently focused on?
We are focusing on backyard homes right now. We've only delivered one full-size home, just sort of an experiment. But we're focusing on backyard homes because it allows us to iterate and learn faster. And it's a high bar because backyards are all shaped differently. If we're challenging ourselves to handle that, and we're continuing to get better at it, continuing to deliver faster, continuing to have fewer install hours to achieve our goals, and to continue to improve the experience for the customer, right? The less time you can be at site, the less interruptive it is of their life and of their experience, like you said in the intro, right? Like people often choose not to do custom build because it's difficult. You have to manage lots of things unless you go out and spend a lot of money for somebody to GC it for you or an architect to manage it. And even when you do those things, you still end up having to do a lot of it yourself. So because it's a product, because while layout is highly variable, there aren't a lot of choices for finishes. We really treat the home as a canvas for your life. Like, here's what you can get. You can then hang anything you want on the walls and like turn it into what you like. Yeah, we're really proud of what we've been able to deliver, how we've been able to add extra space, even through COVID times, to people who need it.
So Craig, that's fantastic. You're having so much success with it. I assume your ultimate goal is to drive down the cost of housing. Is that correct?
We're not at that point yet. I sort of equate our growth as a company kind of like what Tesla did, which was you start with the high-end Roadster product, then you go to a little bit more mass market product. We're cresting out of our Roadster phase and going into our Model S phase right now.
You talked a bit about the configuring of the homes. My first question, though, related to that is the configuration of that floor plan and all the pieces that go together. Is that an individual piece of software that Cover has created?
Yes, we have an internal tool. And again, when you build a car, you always use the headlight option. Every different region of the world has different requirements for headlights. So you may, certainly when we only had one production line at Tesla, you have, okay, we're going to build the Korean cars, or we're going to build the European cars, or we're going to build the North American cars. Our configuration management does have a narrow set of parts, but what you also have to control is the integration of those parts and how they can orient relative to the parts around them. It's a whole other world of complexity that we have to manage. So that's currently an internal tool, but we see a future where customers would be able to log into the website, create an account. We already have a zoning engine that can, within LA City, tell you whether or not we can build in your backyard upfront and for free. So anybody listening to this, if you're in LA City and you want to put in your address, feel free to let us know if we can build in your backyard. That's just one part of the technology that we've developed. Like I said, all the rules for how the parts come together, right? The Lego block corollary is very popular. We're building a set of parts that can be assembled like Legos in any of a number of limited configurations so that you can build anything. That's our goal, right? We're starting at small backyard homes. We'll be moving into full-size homes. And we have every anticipation of multi-story, not just two-story, but beyond, and multifamily as well in the future.
That's awesome. What you're talking about is a geometric configurator, not just something that's configuring a bill of material, right? So you have a combination of both.
Absolutely. The bill of material, right, results from what we're able to do internally. Yeah, we're really excited about what it has been able to deliver as far as a high quality product goes. We're working really hard to make it even easier to manufacture. We're looking to make that transition to a product that is easier to assemble, allows us to deliver in more places faster. Apple and Tesla wouldn't have any impact without scale. And so we're really wanting to make sure that we can get to scale because we feel like we can have a great opportunity for impact.
So when I was first introduced to Cover's website, I immediately thought of tiny homes, but it seems like this is much, much more. Can you kind of help people to understand the differentiation between tiny homes and what you're doing at Cover?
Well, it's important that any home is well designed, right? Being well laid out. And a tiny home is really sort of the epitome of that, where you have to make the most use of a small amount of area, so right, small amount of space. And while we're doing that, we're not optimizing for building on the back of trailers or anything along those lines just yet. I think we sort of began when tiny homes were growing in popularity. And so there was certainly some conflation there in like 2017, 2018. I joined the company September of 2018. Tiny homes have a niche almost sort of like outside of backyard homes. I think is sort of how I think about it, where it enables mobility. That's not something we're focusing on right now. Could we deliver tiny homes though in the future? Like the answer is yes.
Do the homes in the backyard homes that Cover is building in tiny homes, do they all fall under the phrase ADU or the acronym ADU?
Yeah, I think tiny homes is a little bit outside of ADU. ADU, right, auxiliary dwelling unit, is the term at least that California uses to describe a home that you build in your backyard, or even just accessory space, right? It could just be an office. But our covers have the largest we've built are 1,200 square feet, 2-bed, 2-bath. And people have backyards sometimes that are big enough to accept that. Average size of what we build is about 700 square feet, 2-bed, 1-bath is usually what it is. But we have full-size kitchens. We have mini kitchens as well, if that's all that can fit. And we've done just like air-conditioned boxes in people's backyards as well, just as like an extra office space, with or without storage. It's sort of up to the customer. So that's how I would separate. And then tiny homes is usually mobile, not always, but like usually considered mobile. We haven't done a mobile cover at this point, but we are doing exclusively ADUs right now in LA, and we will be expanding in the future.
So Craig, can you share with me, why did you choose LA?
One of the reasons LA is pretty interesting to us is the regulatory bar is quite high. And so we have to be able to, if we can build in LA, right? So the understanding is like, we could probably build anywhere. A lot of the surrounding regions just kind of look to what LA City does. It's known throughout the country as being quite stringent. Also, and I think it's important to identify, California has a factory-built housing program. And what that means is above the ground, our unit that installs is pre-approved by the state to be built throughout the state. So we don't have to go through the normal regulatory checks. What we do is we do structural checks, we do thermal checks, all through our own internal processes. As we build the panels, then we inspect the panels to our own quality control program, again, approved by the state. And then we can deliver to sites per our quality and instruction program, approved by the state. Then they just check that we did what we said we would do. There's one inspection at the end where they just make sure everything is as we described.
I was looking up ADUs and permits and how many were actually generated. And I was absolutely amazed that from 2012 to 2019 alone, there was a 9,000% increase for the request of ADU permits in just the state of California. When you look at Los Angeles alone, that percentage was like 45,000% increase in request for those. It's staggering to me. But then if you think about the cost of property in LA or in California in general, and if you have any space behind you, putting something behind you makes an awful lot of sense. Or attaching, or a garage, right? Or something like that.
Exactly. We looked at like how many of all the permits pulled, how many have been delivered. And I think we were either number one or number two as far as percentage of units delivered relative to like how many permits you pulled. Just because like what we've been able to do is shorten the timeline for our customers, not only on the delivery and the install side. Internally, we don't call it construction, we call it installation, because our product is really driving towards there not being any decision making at site, which is really what slows things down. We look at site as our general assembly. That's the process we're continuing to drive towards in our install process. We've actually delivered a higher percentage of the permits that we've pulled, I think, than anybody else.
The fact that you as a company are designing, permitting, manufacturing, and installing, you're really becoming a one-stop shop. I think that's absolutely amazing.
It's fully engineered. You know, if something happens to your car, there's a million places you can take it. You have the dealer, you have other certified mechanic shops. For a home, it's a little bit more ambiguous. Like, oh, I go find a contractor. Oh, is this, contractors unfortunately get a bad rap sometimes, and it's not an easy job dealing with people and dealing with existing stick-built construction and trying to figure out what happened in this house the first time. Often you don't have the plans, and like surprises come up when you pull the drywall down.
Craig, is it fair to say you are putting specific effort into precision and quality?
The design of the home is really important to us as well. Making sure that it is high precision, making sure that there is alignment and that there is a flow in how the home can be used. And those are the kinds of conversations we have with our clients during the sales process. We look at it as like, you can still make a high quality product that has the durability and the long lasting capability of certainly at least current stick-built construction, if not longer, and really deliver value to your customer by integrating all of that together.
So are you doing simulation related to airflow, solar impact, things like that in your buildings?
Yep. And we're automating it so we can provide transparency to our clients up front. You can configure your home this way or that way, and here's your impact to your costs and how you operate your home. We're just sort of on the cusp of rolling that out. So those are the kinds of things that are possible when you have a system of engineering, when you have something that's complicated that has to iterate so often. And like when you have to deliver every unit that's different, you really have to have that system of engineering working very well. Not only the system of engineering, but the system of operations to take that information and apply it correctly. There will certainly be times where in the future, I'm sure we're just delivering a bunch of the same product because that's what a developer wants or something along those lines. But the thing that really makes it feel high quality is the ability to customize, not because it's built any different, right, than a stick-built home, but it's built to how you want to live.
You mentioned that you have a zoning engine. So can you talk more about that custom to property? Because if you've been around LA is not like the Arizona Valley. It's not flat. It's just rolling hill after rolling hill.
Yeah. We used to, in the early days, deliver on any hillside you could throw at us, and we can. And one of the real advantages of our product is we don't pre-assemble panels into container-sized sections and then drop them in with the crane. We either hand or using custom tooling, carry the panels up to a location and then install them. So we've built on hillsides, we've built behind homes in avocado groves. We've built in very difficult to reach areas, and we often don't have to do it without any cranes at all. So that keeps the cost down. That makes one less thing we have to coordinate for the customer because we've engineered the system, not only of building, but of like transportation as well, all for the customer. I will say that there's a lot of flat in LA as well, and we have focused only on delivering flat in recent months so that we can get good at the process and really narrow the scope because there's no shortage of clientele in that region.
Was there ever a situation where you ran into the property where it was difficult? And if so, can you share a little bit about the experience?
Hillsides tend to be higher value properties. People with higher value properties tend to be early adopters generally. So that was a good portion of our sales. I would say the trickiest one we did was in an avocado grove in the back of a Beverly Hills mansion. You could barely even get a cart through. And so we had to like snake panels around, and we had to custom build tooling. And we actually keep using that custom built tooling, and has enabled easier installs in multiple places since then. But it's really about, that really pushed us to say like, okay, what can we do with these parts and can we deliver here? And we did. We don't have to go flatten a bunch of trees. We don't have to go bulldoze everything in sight. We can really interact with the surrounding and upset the surrounding like flora and fauna as little as possible with our product. And that's one thing we're pretty proud of and increasingly improving as we go.
That's great. When I initially introduced you and Cover Technologies, I talked about what Cover Technologies is doing, developing homes that are well integrated, modern, automated, efficient, developed as a product. We spoke a lot about developed as a product, but talk about well integrated.
Integration can mean a lot of things. When we say well integrated from a design standpoint, we're all very passionate about showing purpose in how something is installed and how it rests relative to the things around it. So having doors in the correct places, not in odd places, because I just had to throw a door in. I think we've all been in homes and spaces where like, none of this makes sense. And it's just because there was a loose set of plans and things were just thrown in as inexpensively or as quickly as possible. When you have something that makes sense, that works well, you almost forget how well it works. So by having kitchens well laid out, by having floor plans well laid out for the spaces, and additionally, we customize the home so that you can take advantage of sunlight, of shade, of views that you want. So when we say integrated, it's everything from great design, both within the unit to as well as great location and design relative to the exterior of the unit as well. Again, the reason that no two units we've sold are the same is because no two backyards are the same. And frankly, even if you have a neighborhood where a contract or a high volume builder is building, even the sites, right, because of the surrounding flora and fauna, tend to change a little bit. And what we can do with our system is take advantage and give owners the opportunity to enjoy the advantages that different sites have available to them.
And I assume that modern is basically the modern design.
Yeah, we're rectilinear, you could argue to a fault. But it really does come down to purpose of design. I don't think we've ever actually lost a sale because the home didn't match the decor or the ADU didn't match the decor of the main home. People understand, when we speak to customers and they're like, oh, well, can I have a gabled roof or some of these other things? We don't offer that and don't have any immediate plans to. I like to have the conversation about your tools and your raw materials are what drive the design and really the aesthetic of your home, right? It can look like a Spanish colonial with the outside stucco, or you can have, if you're in the Northeast and you have a lot of wood around you and you have the wood shiplap siding, you're really building with what you have available to you in your different regions. And that happens all around the world, right? Stone in Greece and Italy and so on. We have a conversation about design and purposeful design, not being wasteful with a bunch of things built into the home from the initial design, but then the home, again, like I said earlier, being the canvas for how do you want to decorate it and how do you want to accessorize it to make it your own. The people that we've sold to and many of our fans, I think, really appreciate that approach. Again, it's about driving less waste as well. We have barely a garbage can a project now because we manufacture, we're efficient with our manufacturing, we ship only what we need to site, and it gets installed exactly where it needs to. Once you begin to engineer a product, all of these other efficiencies come along with it. And that tends to be much more compelling.
I can see where it would. Sustainability is an important factor. It doesn't matter who you are. One of the things that impressed me about the company was the cross-functional, cross-industry team that was brought together. Could you talk a little bit about that and some of the different industries?
Aerospace, I think we are being in central LA. There's a lot of aerospace around here. And so those who work in aerospace that are interested in thinking about the technical details and engineering to that level of specificity and bringing that to something that actually you're not selling to defense, you're not selling to NASA, but you can actually sell to individuals is very attractive for a lot of people. And so that's been a really great way for us to recruit locally and from around the country and the world. We do have one or two people who come out of classical, like sort of high-end construction, commercial construction. Our principal structural engineer has done, stadiums in the Apple campus. And so we bring some of that high-end construction and structural understanding to a product that individuals can buy. And so people who are like interested in going fast, interested in that, sort of startup mentality, but applying it to a problem that needs first principles thinking in order to re-engineer from the ground up, right? We're not taking 2x4s and just cutting them in a factory and like building stick built and shipping to site, right? We use steel, we use foam, we use fiberglass to enable scalability, and ultimately we feel a better product.
It sounds like you've got it down to individual parts, and then the assembly occurs at the site.
We build as much into the panels as we can from production to simplify the site work, or to simplify the assembly. The problem with that is, a lot of places will say, look, we can build a unit in a day. Usually that's only the structure. And what sort of gets glossed over is that they still have to bring in all of the skilled trades to do all of the, plumbing, the electrical, the mechanical. And that takes a while. So we're really developing a system where all of that gets built in and is shipped, installed in the panels, and then easily connected at site.
I would imagine that the control that you have in manufacturing something in a plant versus manufacturing it on site has a lot to do with the quality of those products. So where do you manufacture today?
We're in Gardena, central Los Angeles. That's where I am right now. It's R&D behind me. And then just beyond that, we have 100,000 square feet that we're still building out.
So you've built 36 homes today. Where do you see manufacturing and distribution going? Because you said right now you can build anywhere in California. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. I'm certified to build anywhere in the state of California. Where do we see it going? Everywhere, I think, is the short answer. The hard part is where and when, right? Like understanding what that rollout is. I said earlier, our goal is nothing short of changing the world's expectation of construction. Our goal is to continue to engineer the product, continue to reduce the price so that it would make no sense to build any other way, right? You get a higher quality product. It costs you less. Like, we're not talking about 5 to 10% less. We're not talking about 30% less. We're talking about significant reduction in price that then opens up the market for many more people to be able to own a home. That's really our goal, one of many. And for housing to be erected anywhere, very inexpensively. Imagine we're really looking forward to being able to not only just sell to vacant land, but to have current homeowners with inefficient homes that are energy hogs because they're not well insulated and ACs run a lot, to sell them a product that is very low energy consumption, which we're building into our product. Everything we do is about reducing energy consumption for the home's operation. We still have some accounting to do to identify carbon neutral states, but we're getting close. And all of that is part of the opportunity here, right? So when you talk about reduction of loads on grids and all of these other things, there's no amount of legislation that will change how people behave enough or fast enough, I think, to solve some of the growing crises that we have, both with energy consumption, climate change, and really just with quality of life.
You mentioned vacant land a couple of minutes ago, so that triggered a number of different thoughts for me. But one, vacant land, someone who wants a second home somewhere. What a great spot for that, right? Does the property have to have utilities already on the property?
We currently don't have an off-grid offering, is the short of it. We have every intention of getting to that point.
But if somebody has a piece of property and utilities are within reasonable reach, is that something that you work with them on as well?
We have. We've built in pretty remote. We have one property that we built in a remote area of Joshua Tree.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah.
It's on Airbnb. You can go look it up. It's available to rent.
I will. Yeah. I will go look it up. I'm very interested in that.
That would be one of the more extreme examples. Even some of these larger backyards where we've built like way in the back, not near any surfaces, we've handled for that, right? We budget for that as well. And we have ever improving budgeting models for that. But like I said, our goal is 70% of homes that are purchased are built by developers in the United States. Right? You mentioned earlier, like you didn't do a custom home, you bought a home that you didn't have to build yourself. And there's a lot of reason for that, like you identified at the top of the show. You get a lot of interest from developers as well because they're looking for less expensive ways to build. And so that kind of thing is certainly potential for the future as well.
Switching gears just a little bit, it's my one Siemens question, right? You're using Siemens tools as part of the Siemens Startup Program. How has your experience been so far, and where have these tools helped you the most?
You identified earlier that we have some custom software, right, to do our layouts. What we're able to do is better integrate with our CAD and our CAD releasing into those custom tools so that we can really drive towards one source of truth for our information. This is one of the problems with construction these days is it's hard to, and often they don't really focus on one source of truth. Right? Automotive has done a good job of this. And again, any product, aerospace has certainly done a good job of this. Maybe not great, but good. And we see that one source of truth as being key to scalability and not a new concept, but certainly a concept that having some of the right tools in place helps enable because we are very vertically integrated.
And you touched on the future goals for the company as well, but I think we kind of scratched the surface. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the future goals as a singular topic here.
What we're really doing is developing a solution that can address how do you build space faster. Home is maybe a subset of space, right? Where you work, where you live, where you shop, where you spend time. We look at like our system as being able to be customized in the future, have other things added on top of it. But if the water ceiling and the structure is handled by cover, could it enable other things to be developed on top of it? For instance, so much energy goes into developing, the structure of the home over and over and over again. And even if the home doesn't change, its site changes. And so even a large builder has to sort of like redo the calcs, and that takes a lot of effort because it's often manual right now. Only for some of the largest structural buildings do they have a system of that, large skyscrapers and things of that nature. I'm very interested in what can the home become once you're not spending all of your effort just designing the structure over and over and waterproofing over and over and over again. Once you've simplified the problem by re-engineering it using first principles, what can the home become? I really see this as an enabler because there's so much effort that goes into construction right now ahead of actually building. And then what does that allow people to invent because they're not going into construction, right? Like that's really kind of what excites me is if it takes fewer people to do this, how can humanity be better off? Not only because of the product improvements, but because of the opportunity costs that go along with the repeated energy of doing the same thing in very similar ways over quite often.
My question is, as the product ages, and maybe you don't have an answer for this because you don't have any old product, right? But when a product ages and is 15 to 20 years old, what about the service around that product at that point?
So we provide warranties with our homes, lifetime structural, 3-year full service. The warranty or the service, the home is not so different that someone who could read IKEA instructions can't figure out how to work on it. You'll understand how to even disassemble it as a homeowner if you're so interested. the system is designed so that individual panels can be replaced. We look at aftermarket as being an opportunity for the future as well. A future state that we're planning for is not this feature specifically, but imagine if you could order, from our website, from your account on our website, a skylight option. Right? You didn't get the skylight option when the home was first built, so you put an order for a skylight option. We come in and in an afternoon, pop off a roof panel, put on a new roof panel because we know the part number for the roof panel that was delivered. We know how it was attached. We have a service procedure for unattaching it and reattaching the new one. And it's done in 3 hours in an afternoon, not 6 weeks by people coming over and having to rip drywall and you having to tarp off a section of your home and doing all of this other very impactful things on your life. But it's done in a very easy way. Yeah, service is a big part of this, right? Being able to have a service plan so you don't have to worry about it. And even if not, having full instructions, and even if it's assembled a little bit differently than classical, ease of access to anything, just like a car, right? If something is easy to assemble, it is by definition also easy to disassemble. And that is an important part of what we will be able to provide.
I would have never expected an automobile warranty for my home. Think about that, though, because, and if anybody else is listening out there, if you have a home and you build that home, your warranty is about 90 days, right? You have about 90 days with a checklist to ensure that everything is the way it's supposed to be. After that, the homeowner is on their own. You can get an extended warranty for your air conditioner, your furnace, and those kind of things. But the home itself it's now the homeowners. It's up to them. So having a 3-year warranty on the structure and things like that, that's pretty darn amazing.
Yeah, lifetime for the structure. Like, we really want to stand behind our product, right? It's an early adopter situation right now. So it's important that we do that and ensure that people are well taken care of, and all of our customers certainly are. But it's as much about the product as it is making sure that we're building it so that it can be less affected by earthquakes, so that it can be less affected by fires, so that it can be less affected by floods than the classical options right now as well. And we are really doubling down on that protection against, natural disasters, which seem to be happening with greater frequency, and for less cost, because it's engineered, right? Because it's a product, and because we've pushed all of the complexity into production so that install and service is easy. And that comes from thinking about the problem very holistically, very systematically, just like is done in automotive.
And you are currently looking for resources to help you achieve your goals.
Those are the kinds of people we're looking to hire. And, we are looking to hire engineers, operations teams, PLM managers, right? Speaking to this crowd. So we've got some open positions as well to help us achieve our goals.
I'm interested to hear if you have any advice or words of wisdom for any budding entrepreneurs or people who are thinking about working at a startup company.
I'll go back to what I said earlier about hiring people who know how to achieve and surrounding yourself with people who know how to achieve. No one person ever has a full picture, especially when you're developing something that's like actually new. Yeah, we have people of all different experiences on the team. And I have said during our rounds of fundraising, when investors ask, like, why is your team good? What do you do? And I say, like, we focus on hiring people who have a history of knowing how to achieve and have something where they have gone outside of themselves because they're passionate about what they do. So it's important that to be successful at a startup, really anywhere, it allows you to think ahead. It allows you to anticipate problems that could be coming. It's really about engagement and that desire to want to continue to improve the places where you've been. Whether as an individual contributor or manager, it doesn't really matter. There's always an opportunity, regardless of a station or assignment.
I would imagine that it has to be deep in the company culture because you have such a diverse team.
One of our core principles is great ideas can come from anywhere. I don't think that's unique to us, but we've identified it as one of the key things that we have to be willing to entertain. Like, hey, like, let's get engaged here. Hey, like, I want to hear what you have to teach us, right? We learn as much from the install team, like, oh, this didn't work as well. Paying attention, making sure that we engage, because homes have been homes for millennia, starting from probably the cave. So we're not inventing the home, certainly, but like, our goal is to change the customer's expectation of what the home can be.
I like that a lot. Before we go, do you have any thoughts or comments that you'd like to share with the audience?
I think our emotional connection to homes as a culture, really across the world, is very 20th century. I think what we're really trying to do is combine, sort of an industry 4.0 approach to really make it 21st century, a paradigm shift in homes. And we are looking for really high achievers to help us, continue to develop along that journey. So if anybody's interested, please reach out. And as far as cover goes, we just want to thank you for the opportunity.
I want to thank you personally for joining this conversation. It has been an absolute pleasure talking with you today. Anyone who listens to my podcast knows that I'm a big fan of anything that lowers or eliminates the carbon footprint, which you're doing. So I'm excited about the prospects of the structures that you're building, and the fact that you're building in controlled conditions, right? Where you're building a product that's actually going to meet basic tolerances that fits and function, right? Thank you for being part of this call and sharing your story and the Cover Technology story.
Yeah, my pleasure. I really enjoyed the conversation.
And for our listeners, if you want to know more about Cover Technologies and what they're doing to revolutionize the construction industry, you can go to their website at www.buildcover.com. I also want to thank everyone for listening to today's podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with another amazing startup company. As a reminder, Siemens does offer special packaging and pricing for SMB companies and as well as startup companies on nearly all areas of the software portfolio. If you would like to know more about that, please visit the Siemens website at www.siemens.com/software for startups, all one word, or speak to any of the Siemens partners or reach out to myself. Thanks again for listening to the Siemens Startup Podcast. Feel free to provide comments on this episode by leaving a review on your favorite podcast site, or feel free to email me at kevin.blevins@siemens.com. This is your host, Kevin Blevins. Remember, innovation has no boundaries.